So you have to deal with reality. You made a good point that I learned a long time ago as an investor. So I don't take concentrated institutional risk. My holdings are in many different locations for exactly this reason. So, and that is, if you're a fiduciary for an operating company, as I am, you do that just out of habit because you never know what's going to happen to any one institution at any one time. And that is our situation with FTX. However, we took a huge hit. I'm a shareholder, was a shareholder of FTX International, a shareholder of FTX US. We had multiple accounts on the FTX platform, which are completely locked out now. They have zero balances. I've talked to many other institutional investors that use the platform. They also have zero balances. Obviously, everybody's talking to their accountants and lawyers and auditors and compliance departments about this. It's an extraordinary situation. But at the same time, if it has a silver lining, what I think it's going to be is, I was just yesterday at the governor's convention in Orlando talking to lawmakers. The amount of pressure regulators are getting today about this situation is extreme. It's the number one issue now in financial services. So is in Canada. That's where the assets are going. And that's where they're staying until we get this, whatever you want to call it, shitstorm worked out, because I'm not putting assets where they're not regulated.
So just to be clear, you're a Canadian, right? And these assets are currently in the United States, and you're going to be moving these assets out of the United States into Canada.
Yeah, well, let me disclose. Let me be completely transparent. I'm an Irish citizen. I'm a Canadian citizen. I'm an Emirati citizen. I also have all kinds of assets and investments in the US where I'm an investor and I pay tax. I can put these assets anywhere I want. I can choose any jurisdiction I want. I have access to the EU through my Irish passport. Obviously, I could put them in Dubai if I wish. The most advanced regulatory environment right now that I can find, the very first license ever granted worldwide, was to BitBuy. That is a broker-dealer attached to a crypto exchange in Canada. In my opinion, that is the safest place on earth to put assets. So I can also see that it's also regulated as a public company. It's listed in Canada as WonderFi. You're going to see billions of dollars leave unregulated exchanges looking for somewhere in the world where they can be put safely. And that right now is Canada. I need to bring it down to be on side so that I'm staying in that diversified mandate. It's very hard to do that with cold storage. Very hard.
You need to be able to trade. Kev, I want to take you to a video over here. I'm sure you've seen it 100 times in the last couple of days. I'm going to show it again, specifically this video.
Oh, thank you very much.
Trite. Let me explain how bottoms are made in any market. I don't care if you're in equities or in debt or in crypto or in real estate. You always need a big player to go to zero. That always helps, whether it's long-term capital or whether it's one of these crypto infrastructure companies. I would like to see, and I don't want this to happen, but it always gives you a good bottom when you get a large player over-levered that goes to zero. And that always tends to be the beginning of the rebuilding process. So if you have to sacrifice someone who used too much leverage, and it's always leverage that does this, somebody's over-levered, positions are complicated, they're not transparent, they're not liquid, and they go to zero. Someone is out there on the brink of zero. That's okay. In fact, I'd argue that's a good thing when we get it. Now, do we get it?
Okay, so
what's happened here, ever. Not now, not ever. So the whole point is we need this regulation. In addition, crypto's not going away. It's too productive. It's too useful. It provides a lot of services with transparency and lower cost than the existing systems do today. And I'm talking about, whether you want ACH or a SWIFT transfer or a Fed wire. These things are really old and inefficient and very expensive. Just on payment systems alone, I'd like to use a stable coin for my businesses, and I intend to do that as soon as the regulations pass. Now, along with others, I'm not the only one, I'm going to be spending a lot more time in Washington really firing up my voice on getting this regulation through. I'm not the only person that's going to be doing this. I'm tired of waiting for it. I think we're very, very inefficient, and it's time to move. And this onion that's being unpeeled is going to get much worse by the time this is over. The amount of hedge funds, you just detailed one of them, there are countless others that are going to go to zero. So this is going to have a very, very powerful impact in terms of loss of capital.
What do you think?
Yeah, so I think it's going to burn. This story will burn out in 48 hours, and I'll tell you why. Gensler's agenda and his calendar is public. Sam Bankman-Fried made multiple attempts in Washington to get regulation, particularly on options trading and derivative trading around crypto. And he met with everybody. He was one of the loudest voices towards getting regulation because he wanted to be able to do it in the US and have the same feature set that the international platform had in the US, which it didn't have. So if you in order to use all the features of the FTX platform, you couldn't do it in the US. You had to register it in another country. And so he was very, very active doing that. So look, obviously politics being what it is, they're going to try and make a big story out of this. But at the end of the day, I don't think this one has any teeth, because you can find him meeting with both sides of the aisle, as many people did, going to Washington, trying to advance one of these digital bills, like the Digital Commodities Act or the Transparent Stablecoin Act. He was, and his team were very, very active there. They were in Washington all the time. So look, it's obviously he gave more to the Democrats because his family is Democratic. And I got to tell you something on a more personal level, which, you know, obviously people don't want to hear right now, but zero on our investment in FTX International, zero on our investment FTX USA, zero on all assets which had disappeared from our accounts. So that was a tough day. That's a hit. But we have many, many investments. We have compliance that forces the discipline of diversification, both on positions and on institutions. We don't own all our crypto on FTX. We don't do that because that's not compliant for us in our rules and how we operate our business. So my biggest concern now, and I talked to the auditors about this, and we talked about this earlier, is where can I put them? And for now, it's Canada. It's BitBuy, account there. And now we are monitoring that account with the regulator beside us every day. It's the only country I can find that has such an advanced regulation. The OSC order is in my view, it's a personal opinion, the very best regulator in the world for crypto assets. And the oldest dealer broker there, or broker dealer there, is BitBuy. They've been regulated longer than anybody else. That's where I'm putting my dollars and my crypto. And a few minutes later, Sam called me back at around 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And the only reason I put that call in was to confirm, which number is it you're looking for? Is it 6 billion or 8 billion? He confirmed to me in a very rational conversation. It was short, but rational. The number was 8 billion. I got back on the phone with all of the institutions that I work for in the indexing business that were asking me, what's the number? What are the terms? What's the number? While that conversation was happening, by around 3 in the afternoon, that interview with Gensler at the SEC started to circulate worldwide. And it was clear that he was bringing out a very hard hammer onto this situation. The minute that happened, every sovereign wealth fund backed off because they can't go offside with the SEC. They put most of their assets in the S&P 500. So after multiple phone calls back and forth, and the time zone was 12 hours to some of these countries, that was over. There was no option. I left a message for Sam saying that conduit is closed because of what's going on with the regulator in the US.